Okay, we're going to show you how to do LiDAR data. So we create a new project file, right-click, say Add either layers or Add elevation layer. Add layers will read both elevation data and any other file type. Add elevation layer only reads elevation files. So if you read a geotip file, it could be either an imagery file or it could be an elevation file. And it's not always 100% easy to detect which one it is. There's supposed to be certain bits in the header file to represent whether it's an imagery file or an elevation file, but not all software codes those bits properly. So if you read a elevation file in using add layers and it doesn't read in right, it shows up kind of black or something, then use the add elevation layer command. But I like the add layers command because if I have a whole bunch of LAS files or a bunch of elevation files I want to grab or a bunch of shape files I want to grab, I can grab them all in one shot and go. So I'll just choose add layers, and we want to go into my folder called LiDAR processing, and we're going to go and look at an LAS file. So an LAS file and LAZ file are LiDAR files. An LAZ file is a compressed version of an LAS file. It takes basically, PKZip or WinZip. They compress that file down into a zip file. That's what an LAZ file is. So we'll grab that file, pull that in on our screen. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Then we should add a base map, right? So we know where it is, right? So anybody help me out? What do I do?
Right-click.
Right-click. Always right-click, right? Right-click. When in doubt, right-click. Add base map layer, right? So, and I prefer the Google ones. The Bing ones aren't too bad. There we go. Okay. So next thing we do is we can't contour this right now. It's just points. In fact, if we rotate this right around in a 3D view now, you're going to see a point cloud above the ground. See that point cloud in there? See them up there? And if you turn off the background map, you can actually color. These are actually colored based on elevation. Actually, these are separate files that got merged together, but you can actually colorize them, and you can change your color ramp and stuff like that in there. But anyways, we want to convert that into a grid, right? We want a grid we can operate with. So anybody remember how to create a grid file? Go to the Map Edit menu, and we're going to choose Generate Terrain. Okay, it's asked me to save my work, right? It's got to know where to save the data. It's going to want to know where it's going to save all its data, otherwise it could go anywhere, right? So I'll say OK, and it's going to prompt me where to save it. I'm going to call it, I guess, project number 5 or something here in my case. Hit Save. And now it pops up a dialog box, and it says, OK, probably the only thing you have loaded here is LiDAR, so I'm going to give you that, right? So it looks at what data layers are available and which one's current. So if multiple layers loaded, whichever one is current is going to be the one that's selected. Otherwise, it may not know, and it might just default contours or something. We're going to use the elevation source extents, and we're going to go ahead and save this on our computer. So we're going to call, in my case, I'm going to call it, let's say, 3D terrain. You can override that one that's in there. You could call it anything you want. Right? And then I want to change my resolution. Now here it's defaulting to 5 feet, or actually in this case it's 5 meters, right? So I might want to work in feet. How do I work in feet before I get too carried away? The elevation data is actually in feet, but the coordinate system is metric. So our horizontal projection is metric, but our elevations are in feet. So I want to tell the software I'm working in feet. So before I even go here, I'm going to close out of this, cancel out. I want to switch my units. To go and change your units, go to your File menu, and under Options, you're going to see options for both the application on the left-hand side and project options on the right-hand side. So for example, you may prefer to use GeoHECRAS 4.1 on most of your projects, so you would set that over here on the application side. So you can see all the different engines here. And that would be the default for every time you create a new project. But over here you could override it. In this particular project I may want to use 507 or whatever version I want, because of for some reason. Now if you try to do a 2D model, The software will be smart enough to figure that, hey, you can't use 4.1, it'll default to the most newest GeoHECRAS 2D model engine. But here we're going to change our project units over to US units. It gives you a little warning message just saying this is just changing the labels, it's not changing any of the data. Just say yes to that. Now if I go back to my input screen, you'll see down at the bottom, it's still the same coordinate projection, but now it's working in feet. It's saying we're going to be working in feet in elevation. Okay, so anyways, we're going to go and create a grid again. So that would be under Map Edit, Generate Terrain. Right? We're all set to go. Only thing is I'm going to change my cell size, right? So instead of 5 foot, I'm going to make it 1 foot cells. And you'll see the number of cells there. Now, what number should you be below? I've had the number up to 100 million, and it works okay. I haven't gone beyond that, but I've had 100 million, and it works okay. It takes a little bit while to run, and I don't want to use 100 million here because it's not that big an area. But don't be afraid of it. It's meant to be able to handle big data sets. So I'm going to click on, I got to set to 1, I'm going to click on Generate, and it's going to go on and create a grid for me. Did everybody get a grid created? So we want to colorize that grid to see what it looks like. How would I do that? Yeah, almost. Click on the dot, dot, dot button. It's a Properties button. Okay. Check that little box that says Elevation Color Fill. Just select OK. It'll colorize it for you there. Okay. So there we can see our elevation data. Now the guys in the back asked a question. They said, Chris, you know, when I rotate this around into a 3D view, if I turn my terrain data on, it says, hey, wait a minute, it's like a big pyramid. How do I fill in the area around that? So what we can do is we can right-click over here, say Add Elevation Layer, and we can say Online Elevation Data, and we can say Use Online Elevation Data Source, and select OK. And everybody's going to hit our server at the same time, but it should scale up okay. And depending on how big a site it is, it'll take a minute for it to load all that in. And there's a big hole in the model. So somewhere I got must have my units off or something. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, so something's messed up on that. So we'll have to, you got a hole as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably because of the feet thing, right? So let's try that. We'll go over here. Back over to map. So maybe those units are in meters, huh? They could be. So probably. Okay, so we're going to go back over to options and switch that back to meters. Let's see if it fixes that. Go back in. Where is it here? Oh, I'm zoomed way out. Probably have to unload it and reload it. So I have to remove that online layer and try adding it back in. We'll right click, say Add Elevation Layer. Toggle that option on. This time it should come in metric. There it goes. There it came in as metric. Okay, so that's a good way to check your data, right? So now we have that merged in. Now there is some holes in here. It's because we haven't figured out yet how to do that. So these are tiles that are coming in. Well, let's say I want to fix that. I want to say, you know, I don't want to send this to my boss. He's going to wonder why these holes are in there. So what I can do is I've got that elevation data. I would like to use this online data. I like to use it in my project. Even though it's not super accurate, I still want to use it, right? So I'm going to window in an area here and grab that data and pull it down onto my computer. So what I can do is I can, again, right-click and say Add Elevation Layer. This time I'm going to choose Download Elevation DEM. And this will go and download the data that's on our server onto your local machine. Okay, so I'm going to go and tell where to save it on our computer. And I'll call it low res elevation. Okay, and we'll choose I want to choose some limits here. Just say pick, and I'll just drag a box around this area like that. Okay, and then hit OK. And it's going to download that as a GeoTIFF. So you can see it's pulling down our elevation tiles. In my case, I got 56 tiles it's pulling together. Once it's downloaded, it'll merge those all together as one. Okay. So I successfully downloaded that. So I could turn off my online data. Now if I rotate it around in 3D, now you can see I have these two areas that are kind of merged together. You can see those? So I want to bring the 3D terrain above that. So I still have the holes, right? The holes are still there, but I can see now I filled in all the other gaps. So how do I get rid of the holes? So I'm going to show you that step as well. We're going to go over to our map edit, and we're going to choose here merge DEMs. In here we're going to go and grab our 3D terrain, just hit add, and grab our low res, add, and the order that these are in define the accuracy, or define which one's processed, which one has precedent. So the ones that are most accurate you want to put on the top, and the ones that are least accurate put on the bottom. You can merge as many as you want. And I'm going to go ahead and merge these two as one elevation data file. So I'm going to go in here and save this on our computer, and we'll call it, let's call it merged DEM. Okay, and hit merge. It's going to prepare those guys. Okay, almost there. So now there's my merged. If I turn these other ones off, you can now see this has all been merged together. You guys want to try that? You think you would do this work, right? This is a common thing you would want to do, right? So let's go and go through that process.